Hello, it's Saturday, February 26th, 2011. I'm Andrew Watson. Thanks for tuning into my weekly guitar blog. And to start off with, I wanted to mention that there's people asking me where they can find the podcast that I release every Monday. That's on andrewwatson.com. It's my guitar blog site, basically. Just on the sidebar on the left side, just click on the hyperlink that says podcast. That'll take you to the page where the most recent ones will be posted. So let's carry on into some of the questions that I decided to cover in the guitar blog for today. The first one's coming to us from Mike out in Manchester in the UK. He's writing, I currently am doing exams on my electric guitar and I've been told to do the 12-bar blues. All my friends are saying that it's extremely hard to master. Do you have any tips on how I can get the 12-bar blues going? Well, I know you say that you're doing your guitar exam on an electric, but I do have this acoustic here today. We're going to be using this to demonstrate the process of 12-bar blues very quickly for you. Now, I'm not too sure why your friends are saying that it's so difficult to do 12-bar blues. It's fairly straightforward to do this. I want to talk first of all a little bit about the structure, because your 12-bar blues is based primarily around what's called a 1-4-5 chord progression. And I'm going to show this stuff today in A. So we're going to start with A7. That's the root chord, the 1. The 4 chord will be D7, and then the 5 chord will be the E7. If you want to use just basic open position chord voicings, that's probably the easiest to shoot for. Now, let's talk next about the structure of the 12-bar blues. In most cases, what you'll have is the root chord, in this case A, lasting 4 bars. However, it's quite typical to see the 4 chord arrive quickly in the 2nd bar, just like this, and then return back. And then, when you hit the 5th bar, we're going to return back over to the 4 chord, lasting for 2 measures, typically, again. Then going back to the 1 chord for the next 2 bars. Then on the turnaround, we come into the 5 chord, then into the 4, back to the 1, and then finally on the 12th bar, onto that 5 chord again, and we're back at the top. And that's your 12 bars. So like I was saying, that 2nd bar having the 4 chord, in this case, again, it's D, showing up on that bar is somewhat typical, but it doesn't happen all the time. Just sort of depends on the tune. Again, another thing too is through bars 9, 10, 11, and 12, you can have some different kinds of sets of changes out there. So I just showed you the most popular, I would say, but there are other ways of doing that. If you wanted to look at perhaps a little bit different version, perhaps look at Johnny B. Good. Chuck Berry's famous tune there, because that's got a slightly different ending. But all in all, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening with getting away from just chord strumming, because you could do that, or you could do other kinds of approaches as well. One of my favorite ideas to work with is just a walking line. It's a real fun one, and basically what's going on there is I'm doing this in A. I'm coming from open A string, playing it twice on the 5th string there, and then I'm walking up 3rd fret to 4th fret, and then I'm going to this 4th string E note, playing that twice, and then coming F sharp back to E. So that's the beginning of it. Then I'm going to head up to the octave of A, go over to F sharp, roll over to C sharp. Then I'm going to come over to the E again and just wrap up on that same way that I sort of started off with there. 2nd part. So you put the 2 parts together and you get this. So that's probably my favorite one. And you can just walk that through the other sets of chords. When you get to bars 9 and 10, you'll probably have to cut that in half though, because you'll be dealing with the E to the D there. There's E, D, A. So you see how on bars 9, 10, actually in 11 and 12 as well, you sort of cut that in half, and to me, I like that. It's sort of a baseline sounding idea, and it's sort of fun. If you're a real beginner, I don't really know the level of player you are, but if you're a real beginner, and even for some of you folks out there that are teachers, you may want to show this to some of your real newbie students out there, because this is the next one I'm going to show is a real easy one. And what we're going to do is just sort of outline the dominant 7th sound, because all those chords, by the way, I hope I mentioned that they're all 7th chords when you're doing your 12 12 bar blues. A really nice outline can be just going through, I'm going to do it up here at 5th position, just so you can really see the shape primarily. We're going to go off the root of A, and then we're going to head to the 5th degree, which is an E, and then we're going to head to the flat 7, it's a G, and then we're just going to go up to the octave. So you can just go, move it, and back. And then of course there's the turnaround. So you can, I'm kind of taking liberty with this. I'm not doing the exact format of the 12 bar blues, but at least it gives you the idea of how this particular, almost more of an arpeggio outline operates. It's kind of a fun one, and like I said, it's great for beginners. You can even start showing them things like hammer-on pull-off ideas with it if you wanted to just spice it up a bit. You can add a little pull-off run or something in there. You just kind of be inventive. I mean, that's one of your jobs as a teacher, right? You got to come up with some pretty inventive ways to help your students both enjoy the classes and want to get home after the lesson and, basically practice, which is the whole key factor in keeping them as students. Because if they're getting bored, of course, they'll probably quit, and then you got to find a new student to replace that one. So that's the deal with being a teacher. You want to try and get your students all motivated, and some of these concepts are coming through 12 bar blues teaching. I know with a lot of my beginner students, they find that they just don't even really know where to start, of course, and they're really looking to you for the guidance, as the teacher. And these kind of basic 12 bar blues structures can be really helpful. That's the primary reason why, when I read your question, I thought to myself, wow, man, I'm not really for sure why your friends are saying that it's such a difficult thing, because generally it's one of the first things I teach a lot of the beginner students. And I would probably say, if you're doing a test on this or something, if you want to keep it very simple, I would probably just stick to basic open position chords. Maybe put it in the key of A. It's really easy to flow through the structure in A, go A, D, A, and then back to E. You don't have to do all the finger plucking even that I'm doing. You can just strum it. I don't know, again, what level student you are, but you could just do something like this. I'll play the whole 12 bar structure so you get a really good idea of how it's all formatted, and just do it really simple. I'll just strum through the chords. Okay, here we go. So 3, 4. There's the D. Back to the A again. Here's the turnaround, E, D, A, and then back to the E, and you're at the top again. So what I didn't do there is I didn't make that quick change over to the 4 chord like I had mentioned when I first started discussing the 12 bar blues structure. You could do that as well though, so you could spice it up a bit and go first measure, second measure, and then back to the A if you're in this key for the 3rd and 4th measures, and then the 5th measure, you got your D there. 6th measure and 7th measure, 8th measure, and then the 9th measure, 10th, 11th measure, and then the 12th measure, taking you back to the beginning. So hopefully that helps you out, clears up the mystery of the 12 bar blues format, and hopefully also gets you to understand that it is not at all a very difficult thing to do. Okay, let's go to the next question here now. And this is why I happen to be holding the acoustic, by the way. This question and the following one we'll do afterwards both deal with acoustic guitar. Now, this question came to us from Dan. He didn't say where he's from, but Dan from somewhere wrote in and said, I noticed in a beginner video that you encouraged the classical way to hold the guitar. Now, for you folks that are not familiar with classical guitar sitting position, it is this sitting position right here with the guitar on your left leg, with the left leg elevated using a footstool. And basically the guitar headstock is somewhere around your eye level. And essentially the guitar body is much more in the center of your body. So let's carry on with Dan's question here. It says, although I've heard cases for holding the guitar both ways, you made some great points in your video. That said, having watched a number of your other YouTube videos, I see that you seem to put the guitar on your right leg. I must be missing the video where you talk more about this. Can you clarify things for me, please? I'm just starting out. I want to do things correctly from the beginning. Well, first of all, when I'm filming those videos that you see me so often sitting with the guitar on the right leg, it's better actually for the camera angle for me to have that video on the right leg. So a little bit of that is really having to do with the camera angle on that leg. But having said that, let's talk a little bit about this. Let's start off with this whole classical guitar or elevated left leg style sitting position for the guitar. Now, this really is probably the preferred sitting position, I would have to say. Now, particularly, let's just kind of go back in my history a little bit, back when I was going to Musicians Institute, and when I was going and studying at GIT, I was playing guitar and practicing guitar a lot. I mean, like hours and hours and hours and hours through a day. A normal practice day for me would probably be about 9 or 10 hours of practice. That's a lot of time sitting in a chair holding a guitar. So essentially that guitar has to be feeling quite comfortable. I want my body very, good posture, keeping the back straight, and just very relaxed. And this type of sitting position is ideal for that. So in those long hours of practice that I was doing when I was going to Musicians Institute, I was sitting like this, 90% of the time. Now, sometimes, just because you get kind of sore and you want to kind of keep yourself, relaxed, it's okay to move the guitar to the right leg or maybe sit a little bit differently. And, there's always, when you're just trying to, mess with something, perhaps you may be sitting and watching TV in a certain way, or maybe you're kind of lying back more on the couch watching a movie or something and plunking away on the guitar. So, there are other ways of sitting, but I mean, for me personally, let's say if I'm going to be recording, especially with a classical guitar, I will be in the studio sitting this way. Of course, there are different scenarios. There's other options, like I was mentioning about camera angles when I'm filming the videos that you'll watch on the Creative Guitar Studio YouTube channel. Now, also, I wanted to mention some of the benefits about the sitting position here, the classical sitting position. One of the main things is it keeps the guitar very centered in your body. It's very well balanced, and you have lots of easy access to the entire fretboard. And basically what happens is with this sitting position, your elbow is always free. It's, in the right leg sitting position, even if the guitar is elevated, you tend to get your elbow kind of smacking up against the side of your rib cage there. So it feels like you're kind of running out of room, or you're fighting against your body. You probably have to twist your back and your spine in a funny way. That probably isn't great for long periods of sitting. So the elevated left leg and the classical guitar sitting position is not only really good for the sense of freedom across your entire fretboard, and also the way your hand comes into the posture, the plucking hand that is, to be able to pluck through the string sets, and it just makes you sit in a better posture. And let's say if I'm playing at an event where I'm performing on acoustic guitar, whether that's some kind of wine and cheese party, or I'm at a wedding, or whatever it might be, a lot of times I'm wearing a suit, and I find that when I'm wearing that sort of penguin outfit there, I find that it's not like sitting in a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. I'm kind of more of a t-shirt and a pair of jeans person, and I find that sitting, when I'm all dressed up, I feel much more comfortable in this sitting position with that type of clothing than I do in a loose-fitting t-shirt and a pair of jeans, so to speak. So there's all these factors to take in, but overall I would have to say that this sitting position, I would have to promote it as the best sitting position overall. It's great for long hours of practice. It's great for posture. I think it's really probably the best one for your back. Guitar players are notorious for having different kinds of back problems. Just sort of the list of the pluses could go on and on. The other thing to keep in mind, though, however, and this is from one of my favorite classical guitar teachers I ever had. He had also been quite, into the direction of promoting moving the guitar around, during a practice session, and not always sitting in the same type of sitting position. And that also, I should mention as a part of this, I think it's really important to take lots of breaks when you practice. So it's not just about the sitting position when you're sitting in the chair, it's also about taking a lot of breaks and getting up and walking away from it. It not only freshens your mind up, but it also relaxes your body more, and so when you come back to begin practice again, you feel more refreshed. So hopefully that clears up the whole sitting position aspect for both Dan, thanks for writing in, by the way, as well as for other folks out there as well. Now, the last question that we're going to take a look at comes to us from Hakan, I hope I got your name right. You wrote in saying, I've been practicing fingerstyle guitar arrangements for quite a while now, but one thing I struggle most with is deciding what finger on the right hand should play a string when there's a not so obvious switch over to other strings. I like to keep the fingers on strings 1, 2, and 3 all the time, sort of like basic classical guitar posture if you're familiar with it. But it's confusing to me when I should switch to strings 2, 3, and 4, so if you have to switch over. I hope that you can shed some light on this matter, as it has spooked me for quite some time in my playing. Well, you know, I thought this was a great question because in the beginning days of me playing fingerstyle, I was taking classical guitar lessons, and I had a lot of strict, rules that were coming out of all the classical books that I was studying from. And classical guitar, at least the way I took it, it was structured more around, you're doing these pieces, you're getting fingerings for them, you're doing exercises, and at the same time, the bulk of what you're trying to do also is learn how to read music well. So that was sort of my initial exposure. I did several years of that, and then when I went to GIT, I had some teachers there that were very good fingerstylists, very good classical players, but they started kind of introducing me to a little bit different light of really just kind of doing more what felt right. Now, while I was at GIT, I was really much more interested, not so much in the fingerstyle and the acoustic guitar approach. I was much more interested at that time in jazz and electric guitar stuff, fusion players. So I kind of had a different outlook, I should say, to things. And when I had returned back to Canada again, and I had a chance to meet some other guitar players, two people really, I think, really finally solidified things for me in a really solid way with fingerstyle. One of them is a folk fingerstyle singer-songwriter, Canadian guy. His name's Stephen Faring. If you've never heard of him, definitely check him out. He's a great songwriter and a fantastic guitar player. And the other fellow is another Canadian guitarist. His name's Don Ross. If you like Andy McKee and some of these internet YouTube famous guitar pickers, you're going to love Don Ross. In fact, I'm not 100% sure of this, but I think Don Ross and Andy McKee actually had done some work together, but I'm not sure on that. You might want to double check that. But anyway, Don Ross is a fantastic player, and like I said, also Stephen Faring, another fantastic player. They kind of opened my eyes up a little bit to the idea of melding the classical guitar approach with more of a natural approach of kind of doing what fits, what feels right. And let me just give you an example about this. When I was taking classical lessons, let's say, for instance, if I was just going to take a C chord and go through a C chord, in classical, the idea would be to go across the chord and drop your thumb across and then go index, middle, ring. But for a folk style approach, you may not really want to do that. You may want to shift your finger positions over and use your thumb on the 5th string and then index, middle, and ring. So you can tell there's sort of a shift in philosophy a little bit. And I found that particularly very useful. I found it almost kind of really freeing technically, because in the classical approaches, there's a lot of technical direction that you're following and almost like tradition-based approaches. Whereas when you deal with more of the folk fingerstyle concept, it's kind of, whatever feels right, whatever works right for you. And sometimes sometimes it might be a good thing. Sometimes it may not be great just from the standpoint of freedom and speed and the technique direction. So I think, in my personal opinion, I think it's really good to have a background in classical guitar so you know how to approach things from that sort of proper technique and the mechanics of approaching things from the real traditional direction. And then there's that sort of freedom too of the folk and fingerstyle, and to some extent too as well, country playing, ragtime type ideas. And when you kind of meld both together, I think that's when I personally started feeling like I was getting my real direction on acoustic and fingerstyle guitar together. So my suggestion for you, Hakan, I hope I'm saying your name right, is to basically study some classical concepts and get out there and also take a look at some of the folk and fingerstyle players and meld the two ideas together and develop your own style. You did not write to me in your email what kind of fingerstyle guitar you like to play. So I don't know if you're a real strict classical guitarist or if you're more of a folk fingerstyle approach person. So, you know, I'm going to go with my gut instincts here and think that you're probably more along the folk fingerstyle approach, because if you're watching my videos are certainly not from the strict standpoint of the classical guitar direction. So that's what I'm going with. I'm winging it here on that one. But anyway, I hope those suggestions have helped you. Really go with what feels right. Try different techniques. If you wanted to even limit yourself to maybe just using thumb, index, and middle for certain approaches, then that might be a good idea. Maybe try some of the stuff where you're dropping your thumb across. And again, not type of approach. If I'm doing it from across a C chord or even an A minor or whatever fifth string root chord perhaps you're playing, B7 or whatnot, you could try both techniques. So, dropping the thumb from one string to another, and then working through the rest of the notes with index and middle, or perhaps using index on the fourth string and plucking across that way. So try different techniques out. Maybe if you haven't got any classical guitar background, perhaps pick up a few classical guitar manuscript papers to work off of, some lesson plans out there, or just maybe tune into YouTube. It's a fantastic resource. I'm sure there's a lot of great classical guitarists doing some teaching on YouTube that you can pick up a few techniques from. And hopefully they have perhaps a website as well, and you can email them some questions to further expand your knowledge on this. So anyway, I do have to wrap up for now. That's about all the time I have for today. But I want to say thanks for watching. And of course, thanks for sending in all the great questions. I really appreciate it. And keep in mind, again, about that podcast, this new thing I'm doing. And they are out every Monday on my andrewwasson.com website. You can find them with that link on the left navigation pane there. Until next time, take care. And we'll catch up with you on my next video blog. Take it easy. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.